anyways, what's up, Moose? How old are you?
I'm 23.
Nice. What are your pronouns?
He, him.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you're competent. Now, do you have a problem with any of the statements up above or anything that we've said so far?
Yeah, I have a problem with the statement that Jesus probably didn't exist. And so
Awesome.
my starting question would be, do you think that just God in general doesn't exist, or you think Jesus was a real person, he walked the earth and died, but you don't believe he was who he says he was?
This is a great opening question. So first of all, I'm an agnostic atheist, so that means that I don't know whether or not a God exists. But on the second part of that, I just simply don't believe that a God does exist in any kind of way. If you want to ask me about specific God definitions, kind of like Yahweh or any just in general any kind of specific God definition, I'm going to be more Gnostic about it, which means that I'm going to say that I know that God doesn't exist. As far as Jesus goes, I say that Jesus probably didn't exist because I feel like the evidence leans away from historical existence and more in the realm of like mythical or legendary existence. So, I think that Jesus existed as a legendary or a mythical creation and not like a historical reality.
So my counter to that would be you can disregard the Bible in this sense, right? You can just look at other historical sense, because when Jesus died, who was actually around? It was the Romans, because the Romans were the ones who actually crucified him and sentenced him. And we know from
how do we know that?
You can look at the transcripts. You can look
Which
through
transcripts?
Oh man, you could try to quote me. This is something you can just look at, because I know the Bible.
No, we actually can't look at it because the Gospels, they're not historical accounts, and those are the only ones that attribute Jesus' crucifixion to either the Sanhedrin or the Roman government at the time. So Paul only identifies the rulers of this age or the archons of this aeon, which could either mean the Romans, if you're thinking in that kind of context, or more than likely he's talking about Satan and his demons crucifying Jesus. So it's a bit ambiguous as far as Paul, who's our earliest account, goes. So we don't actually know who crucified Jesus. We just know that the earliest sources, Paul identifies Jesus as being crucified, but he doesn't ever say explicitly who crucifies him.
It was Pontius Pilate.
No, that again is something that was constructed by the Gospels and not anything that we actually find in reliable historical documents.
So you deny that Pontius Pilate was the ruler of the Romans at that time?
Nope. That's not what I deny. Nope, I don't deny that. I agree that Pilate was in a certain position of power in that particular area, and so that's why the Gospels seem to have some kind of historical air, about them. But I don't see the earliest sources of Jesus actually identifying the Romans as the one that crucified Jesus. That's all I'm saying.
So, I'm sorry. I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around what you're saying.
Okay.
So you're saying that you believe that Pontius Pilate, he was real. He was around during that time. He had a position of power, but because it was the Gospels that said it was the Romans that crucified him, that you say that's where the lack of evidence lies.
Well, yeah. So if I can further explain here. So we've got Paul that's writing about the 50s CE. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mark comes after that in between 65 and just after 70 CE. And then we've got Matthew that is copying Mark and any other kind of oral sources that he may have, or any other sources he may have access to. We don't really know. But Matthew is copying off of Mark in about the 80s, somewhere around in the 80s. And then Luke Acts, technically, because they're written by the same person, was written sometime after 93 CE, and then John was written in the 2nd century. Luke may have been written in the 2nd century. We really don't know. But it seems to me like, at least half of the Gospels were possibly written in the 2nd century. And so, like, they had access to all the previous Gospels. Luke directly makes references to both Matthew and Mark. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to place any of these Gospels before Paul. What Paul enlightens us about is the fact that he only knows Jesus as a celestial figure. He only knows of a risen Jesus. He doesn't know of an earthly Jesus that had an earthly ministry, that had disciples and all this other stuff. He does identify other apostles, meaning Peter, James, John, and all them. They were just apostles of Jesus, meaning that, and this is what Paul explains, that apostles were those that received revelation from Jesus, and not that they directly knew him during life. So the earliest accounts that we have of this Jesus figure appearing to people are after he, has risen, up into the heavens and become the celestial Lord figure. And so Paul never identifies him as a historical figure on earth.
Well, yeah, Paul never actually met Jesus physically, but whereas like Matthew, Mark, right, Luke, and John, they were his disciples. They were with him on a day-to-day basis.
Those Gospels were actually anonymously written, so we don't know that they were firsthand eyewitnesses, and we don't know if they were actual disciples or not. They don't actually claim that in the Gospels, so there's no way for us to actually know like who wrote those things. We know through textual criticism that they pulled a lot of their information from the scriptures, which would have been the Septuagint at the time. So, I mean, we definitely know that, but we don't know exactly, like at the time, like where they were getting their information. They don't have any kind of source criticism, or they don't have any kind of source citation of where they got their information. We just have to sort of do textual criticism as to where they got their information from.
Wouldn't you say, though, that for these people to be writing about this, that, I mean, it was very dangerous for them to be doing so during that time period?
No, it wasn't any more dangerous than any other like religions that existed in the Roman Empire. So like it's no more dangerous than anybody else.
Well, Romans.
So hang on, I got a better answer for you, and this is more closer to home. Okay, during the 1950s, there was this thing called prohibition. Okay, it was illegal in all states to drink alcohol. Do you think that stopped people from making alcohol and running alcohol and drinking alcohol?
Well, I feel like that's a little different, considering with this, they were hunting down the believers of Jesus.
It doesn't matter. They were hunting down these gun runners too. These not gun runners, these rum runners, these people who were peddling alcohol. They were hunting them as well. Why is it different for these people to write about a figure in history than it is for somebody else to do something illegal? Why does that make any sense?
They were hunting them down to kill them because they did not like what they were talking about. Because you have to think back then, there was with the Romans, that the Romans wanted to keep their power. And then you also had the Jews and the Israelites. And the only way for them to keep control of the Jews was they had the Sadducees and Pharisees who were in direct alliance with the Romans. And so they did not want people believing in Jesus because that was tearing away the control of the Jews from the Romans, which would cause an upstir.
Okay, so let's go with an even simpler question. I take it you've read the Gospels, as have I. Okay, so when Jesus goes to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray, Does he go there with other people, or does he go there alone?
They were outside of the garden, but he went into the garden alone.
And yet the Bible says exactly word for word what he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. You think he came out of the garden and told those people exactly what he said word for word?
Yeah.
No. No, he
What,
did not. Because
what
they're
is what
not.
is wrong with him saying what he prayed word for word?
Because, number one, it
Who
was
was there? Who was
against
there
the
to record it?
law. It was against the law for Jews to speak about what they were praying in public because they were supposed to do it in a secret room to themselves. Prayers were to be alone with yourself and nobody else. So why would this man Jesus, who was a devout Jew, tell
No,
anybody what he prayed while he was in there?
because he changed the law.
No, he did not come to change anything. He said, I did not come to change the law, but to fulfill the law. You need to read your
Yes.
scriptures better.
No, he fulfills the law, but this is where Christians and Jews differ, because Jews still believe in the Old Testament. They reject the new, right? The Christians, they believe in the New Testament because that is where certain laws changed, right? You no longer have old laws that are still now followed.
You need to read your Bible better. He said explicitly, I did not come to change the law.
Yes,
And
but
if you are changing
but
the
certain things
law,
changed when he died,
no,
because he
why?
as
He said he
because
didn't want to
What
change it.
changed? Sorry, assassins.
so
I'm kind of curious. What changed? Like, as far as Jesus' sacrifice, what changed about Jewish law?
well, for one, you no longer had to give a sacrifice because
Right.
he fulfilled the
The,
Abrahamic
the, the
law.
sacrificial system was changed. The moral system change of Christianity, or, well, Judaism.
Yes, and so with him
The moral
fulfilling that
system
law.
changed. So let me ask you this. Do the 10 Commandments apply to you as a Christian?
Yes.
They do. Okay, great. Exodus 20:17, the 10th commandment says that women are property, not to be coveted by other men. Do you treat women as property in your life?
I don't know where you're getting property from.
Exodus 20:17, women are listed amongst other property, including chattel slaves. So do you treat women as property, as chattel slaves?
No.
Okay, then you apparently are disobeying God, and you should probably repent and start treating women as slaves.
I will say that through time, certain words have been twisted.
No,
Like
not through time, not through time.
because
No, fucking shut up. Okay, listen, not through time, not through anything like that. This is what the Israelites meant. This is what God meant when he spoke to the Israelites as far as the Old Testament goes. So you cannot sit there and fucking tell me that this is not what God meant. God knew what he was saying. God knew what he was inspiring. This is exactly what God wanted. So you cannot tell me that God did not want women to be treated as property. It's that simple. Jag, who's in our chat here, do you consider yourself property of your husband?
Very rarely, but whenever it is, whenever I am considered his property, it's for either tax reasons or it's consensual. This man has never so much as raised his voice to me. So no, never, not once.
Exactly. In the biblical sense, never property. It's consensual. Name me one time in the Old Testament, Moose, where consent of a woman is considered. That's the biggest thing that I always harp on when we talk about the Hebrew Bible or the Newer Testament or anything like that is, where is consent considered for the woman? And I feel like CHS Chaplain Cass is in the chat right now, and I love Chaplain Cass's content there. Everybody should watch Chaplain Cass. He's got great humanitarian commentary on like everything, but like, I feel like consent is a major factor here, and the fact that God never considers the consent of women is a big problem. What do you think about that, Moose?
I mean, I don't think the Bible has ever said anything about the consent of man or woman.
I think that it has everything to consider for men, but never considers the consent of women, and I feel like that's a big problem.
Can you show me a verse where it says for the consent of man? Because I've never heard that before.
What do you need the consent of men for? Because the book is for men. Why would they need the consent of men? It is for men. Go look at 1 Timothy now.
There is 1 Timothy as far as the New Testament is concerned, but also if you go and you look at, let's say Genesis 38, where Jacob actually tells, or Israel, or Abraham, I can't remember which father it is, but he basically tells his second son to go and copulate with his first son's wife in order to give his first son children. They didn't consider whatsoever the woman's consent in this. They never asked the woman, hey, do you want to bear the children of your brother, of your husband's brother? Do you want to do this? They never considered that whatsoever. Also, if you want to look at just Jacob, who was later renamed to Israel, he literally bought women with his labor in order to start the Israelite nation. Like, that's what it was. He bought women with his money, with his labor. How can you sit there and tell me that men's consent wasn't considered when the only consent that was ever considered was a man asking the father if he could literally take possession of his daughter, not marry, because there was no word in the Hebrew language for marry, meaning a consensual relationship between two people where they enter into some kind of contractual obligation to each other. That's not what was meant. It was take possession of, like literally take possession of this other person as property. That's what it meant. So when you ask me when in the Bible does it ever consider men's consent, every fucking where it's considered like a man and another man coming to the consent over whether or not one man should take the property, like take ownership of a woman. That's everywhere in the Hebrew Testament.
There's actually another story that's very good at showing this. It's in Genesis as well. It's when Dinah gets taken by a man, and so her brothers go in and they off the entire city, and then and then before that happens, they basically go, or maybe it's after, I don't remember at this point, they go and meet, all of the men meet, and they say, we will make one big family, no daughter is in the room, no woman is in the room. The only thing you have to do for us to become one big family is cut off your pee-pee hoodie, and then we will all be one big happy family, and we will trade our daughters. And the women had no say in that whatsoever.
Yeah, and then there's number 31, where the Israelite people go into the Midianites and they slaughter everybody, and then but they keep alive all of the prepubescent girls and take them so that they can force them into forced marriages, which is sexual slavery. So, I mean, there's a lot of different stories that we can point out in the Bible where, the women's consent is violated or not even considered.
In 1 Timothy, a woman is not allowed to preach. She is not allowed to speak in the church. She is to remain silent and submit unto her husband when she returns home. Submit unto her husband. That
Right.
is not a form of consent. Submission is not a form of consent. There is no consent asked of her. She is to do what she's told, and she is to report to her husband.
Well,
Exactly. And
men are to submit to their wives
Oh,
also.
no. I'm sorry. That's a misunderstanding of what's meant there. Chaplain Cass in the comments. I love Chaplain Cass, by the way. I always watch Chaplain Cass's video all the way through at least once. He says, keep up the good work, John. Let's all stand up and use our voice. I totally agree with that. And I definitely want to have Chaplain Cass on my channel, on my YouTube channel, to have a further conversation about things. So I'll be in contact with you on DMs or whatever about that. But I feel like that's a total misrepresentation of the dynamic between men and women, especially as Jesus views it. Because Jesus in the New Testament definitely lays out a hierarchy for the family. Do you know what that hierarchy is, Moose?
I mean, the man leads the household, and he has
Right.
to.
So it's God, right? Sorry to interrupt, but it's God, and then it's Jesus, and then it's the man of the house, and then it's the woman, and then it's the children. And so, like, there's this whole hierarchy, and the woman is subservient to the man. So while in the eyes of God, it may be equal because everybody is equal in the eyes of God, as far as like the household goes, it's definitely segmented between man and woman.
The man has a role to lead his family and to take care of them, but it says that the man
Why
is
can't a
also to
woman?
die.
Why can't a woman lead?
I don't know. I think that's just kind of how. I think that kind of just goes into genetics. I'm not.
Well,
when I say that, I'm not saying
what about
that.
genetics means that a man leads more than a woman? Like, what makes a woman more likely to lead than a man?
I mean, I feel like you could just look at history. I mean, that's why we've never had.
Oh, look at history, real, and an appeal to tradition is the one that you're going to go with here.
No.
I in my professional career, I have served under the leadership of women more so than I've served under men. And what I've noticed when I've served under women is that they are far more capable than the men that I've served under. So don't sit there and tell me that like men are somehow better leaders than women, because that's just some misogynistic shit that's been perpetrated
I
through our
never
society.
said that women can't lead.
No, but you appeal. No, but hold on, Moose. But you appealed to tradition that men have traditionally led, and so that means that men should traditionally lead in the future, which is a fallacy. That's a fallacy you can look up.
No, I'm saying that if you look throughout time, I mean, men have led through just about everything. I'm not saying women can't lead anything, because they most definitely
can.
can.
You're right, Moose. Men have led through wars. They've led through complete wiping off of people from the face of the earth. They've destroyed entire islands of people, let alone entire like state-sized land masses, like the one in, I don't know, the Middle East right now. Like, really, please listen to yourself. Men lead. Men have been the traditional leaders in the world. Look at what has happened thus far, versus look at what happens in countries that have female leaders. Often their like standard of living and their happiness rate and their survival rate and thrival rate is a lot better, if not like incomparable to other nations, because of how good they're doing.
Because women have more empathy than men, women have more compassion than men, women have more desire for all peoples to live together in unity than men ever do. Because we simply don't give a fuck. All we want to do is rule, have power, and murder all we want to. That's why we're over in countries we shouldn't be in, patrolling the world like we're some sort of world police, when we should be here taking care of what needs to be done here and not policing the world.
Well,
Because
now
us
to
men
talk about
have to
that,
have
I mean,
power.
I do agree that we should focus on our own homeland, but then to say that we shouldn't be in other countries, that's a mixed conversation. Only because we still have to hold a presence, but I don't think that we should be waging war on other countries. That's a different conversation.
No, I
Until
think men need to keep
until
other men in check. Like how you're saying, men are better leaders, or that was the essential message that I got. No, you need to look at other men and say, why do you think that way? And then make them think. That's the end of the discussion for me.
and until
Sorry to interrupt, but I feel like that's what I'm doing with challenging like these preconceptions about marriage in the Bible and like
Oh,
women's
I just mean
consent in the Bible.
Moose. I mean Moose. He needs to sit down with
Yeah.
these questions and ask himself, why does he think this way? And then whenever other men in his vicinity say things like this, or boys rather, he needs to also check them, because that's where all of this is going to stop, is men checking their fellow men. Y'all don't listen to women. So I mean, that's the next route we gotta go. Y'all have to start checking each other instead of policing everybody else besides yourselves.
And listen, I fully understand where you're coming from, but listen, Moose, until 1941, America did not police the world. We stayed here. We weren't even part of the UN. We were America, and we were a sleeping giant that said, if you fuck with us, we will fuck your world up. Please leave us alone. We're doing our own thing. And until 1941, when we had to enter into World War II, that's when all of this world policing began, because somebody had to wake the sleeping dragon. And now we think we have to run the world, and that's not how it should be. We need to go back to when we didn't run the world, and we need to go back to better principles and looking out for women and allowing them to have better rights, allowing them to have equal rights, equal opportunities. I see people all the time saying, Kamala, I want Kamala. And yes, I want Kamala. But let me tell you something. If Kamala was a Republican, I'd vote for her too, because I don't care anymore. We need a woman. Behind every good man is a better woman. We need a good woman to sit in the seat of power in this nation and use empathy and compassion to get us on a better course than wanting to fucking rule everybody, because that doesn't work out for anybody.
No, I mean, I agree with that. Like, I'm in the army, right? And I see my reason for with why I'm going to vote for Trump coming up is because I don't want to go to a needless war that I don't think we should be in. I mean,
What war?
the war for World War III. I mean, we're very close to.
And Trump is going to start a war with Mexico.
Well, hold on. So, Moose, you would rather align with Putin and allow Putin to overtake Ukraine in order to avoid World War III.
Yeah, I do not like Zelensky.
You're fine with Putin. You're good with Putin. Like, Putin's whole thing, you're fine with.
I don't want war.
You don't want war, so you're fine with aligning with Putin. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to represent your position here.
No, I want the war to stop.
You do understand that the Republican Party in in historical context have been the ones to mainly be in the wars.
Yeah.
You realize that Zelensky has said that he wants the Americans to die for his country.
What? I would need a citation for that, but also it doesn't matter.
He said,
preventing Putin from expanding his territory and violating other sovereign countries, I feel like is a very important thing. And so that's why I'm very much in support of stopping Putin from violating sovereign countries. Do you feel like sovereign countries should be overtaken by larger countries?
No, but I do think
Okay,
that if
then
you,
it seems like you should be against Putin too, but you seem to be fucking going face down, ass up for fucking Putin.
I don't care about either one. I don't care about Ukraine. I don't care about Russia. I care about America. And see what happens though. What happens though?
You know, this is the exact same fucking thing that happened in the 1940s, in the 1930s, when with Smotsies, right? Like, obviously, the world stage affects us greatly. So, like, Putin wanting to invade another country, another sovereign country, is going to specifically affect us. And so, like, I have very intimate knowledge on this particular point, and I feel like you're just not really understanding the world stage and what it means for Putin to invade a friendly country that we have a particular agreement with. And so, like, we need to protect Ukraine. Like, this is an important thing. You're just like, fuck all of that. Fuck all of our promises to our allies. Let's just fucking go face down, ass up for fucking Putin right now. And that just seems fucking crazy to me. It really does.
But
Now-
didn't Assassin just say that he doesn't think that we should be in other countries?
Now listen,
That we should stick to our own country?
I don't
we
think that's
should
what he said.
we should stick to our own country, but let me tell you something. We have allies in other places, and we have specific people that go out of their way to make sure that those places are protected. Okay? Policing the world includes backing dictators. Okay, so look, I don't like drugs, right? I don't like drugs in my country. I really don't. But do I believe we need to go to war with Mexico on drug cartels? No, I don't. Because if we do, we're going to wind up in a needless war against people who are going to get murdered, that are innocent people, because we're trying to fight a war on another land instead of fighting it here at home. These wars can all be defeated here at home. We don't need to go other places and fight wars for other people. That's the problem with our government. They think we need to be everywhere, fighting everybody, and we don't.
Love Gecko, we are going to get to you here in a second. I do want to wrap up with Moose. Moose, if you want to say your piece here at the end, but we do need to move on.
Oh, no, that's all good. I got pretty much everything I wanted to say. Y'all gave me some good things that, I got to do a little bit more research on, but,
I appreciate you coming up, and I hope that you'll come up in the future, because I do love good conversation, even if it gets a little bit heated and everything like that. I do appreciate a good conversation. I think that we had a good conversation.
And I apologize if I seemed a little bit over. I was not trying to seem a little bit over. I appreciate your conversation as well.
No, y'all are good. Y'all truly believe in what you believe, just as I truly believe in what I believe. That's the beautiful thing about America.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much, Moose, for coming up. But we are going to get to Love Gecko here in just a second. So thank you so much for coming up there, bud.
Absolutely. Y'all take it easy.
All right. You too.